Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. That blessed arrangement, that dream within a dream. Thank you, thank you. Little Princess Bride for you. Yeah, Andy bet I wouldn't do it, so yeah. Wow, true love. No, I won't. I've been working on my British accent, hanging out with the British guy a lot. It's working. I'm getting better. So we're going to be talking about marriage for the next few weeks, and this is a really exciting time. And it's not just for people who are married; it's for everybody, because I think that even those that aren't married, we can still glean and learn from these great these great concepts and these great tools. So I just want to share with you about this and talk about marriage for the next few weeks. So, ladies, I want to talk to you just for a minute, just to ask you. I've done quite a few weddings, and one of the things that we talk about in the weddings is just kind of the idea that you've been dreaming about this for a long time. Been dreaming about the perfect wedding. You talk about it. You get all the brides magazines and all the stuff, all the dresses, and talking about that perfect wedding, that perfect guy, that dream within a dream. And you're starting to go after all of those things. You have the amount of kids that you want, their names, their sexes, all of that stuff is in the dream that you have. And it's a beautiful dream. Guys, when you're dreaming in middle school, it's a little bit different kind of a dream that you have when it comes to marriage, because really it's just one thing. We sex 2 times a day for junior high guys. It's about all, right? I want to just kind of say that how many of you are still dreaming that dream? Nobody's raising their hands right now. They're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not. Sadly, the thing is that 50% of marriages don't make it. 50% of the dream gets shattered. 50% of those, Christian, non-Christian, it is across the board, 50% of marriages just don't work. And of the ones that do stay together, many of them just exist together, which is unfortunate. The other day I was having lunch, and I noticed a couple that came into the restaurant that I was eating in, and the husband and wife, I'm assuming that they were husband and wife, came into the restaurant, sat down, ordered, didn't talk to each other. She stared out the window the entire time. He looked down at his food. They took about a half an hour to eat, and then they left. And I went, this is unfortunate that their relationship has gone to that point to where they don't even talk at lunch. It's unfortunate and it's sad. Many of them are miserable. But if I were to say to you, there's a 50% chance that something's not going to work. If I were to say that to you about there's a 50% chance that if you ride your bike on the way home today, you're going to get into an accident and you're going to run over the rock in the middle of the road and hit your head. Won't you get prepared for that? Won't you look for that rock every time you drive on your bike for the rest of the day? Wouldn't you just say, maybe I need to wear my helmet on the way home? Wouldn't you put on maybe a set of football pads? To just prepare yourself, because there's a 50% chance. In this area, especially this season because it's so hot and dry, there might be a 50% chance that as you're taking your garbage out in the morning that a bear will attack you. It's a good chance, 50% chance. It'll either happen or it won't happen, right? So if you heard that a bear would attack you, maybe you have a 50% chance of it happening. Wouldn't you carry a gun with you or some bear spray? Maybe a bat with some, barbed wire on or something? You'd do something, right? You'd protect yourself if you had a 50% chance of something going wrong. Let me ask you then, why is it that we don't start to protect ourselves spiritually because of this warning that 50% of marriages don't work? they fall apart. We need to be spiritually equipped. I want to walk through some things that we can do, some vows that we can take, because I truly believe that an amazing marriage is attainable. It is absolutely attainable. It is something that can and should and does happen. Absolutely. I feel, though, that there are some things that we can do to work towards having that better marriage. All right? And if you're not in that place right now, let me encourage you, that's okay. There is grace and there is the opportunity to work through things. And even if things haven't worked in the past, I pray that in the future of relationships, you will take these things to heart and you will begin to work on them for the future. Okay? So hear this morning. And I just want to say that I do believe absolutely that a great marriage is possible. You know, when we talk about marriage, on the wedding day, we all share vows. There's that moment that we make promises, that we make vows of this commitment that we are about to embark upon. And, you know, the traditional ones, in sickness and health, and for richer for poor, till death do us part, all of those things. We share those. Some people get really creative and write their own vows. I was in a wedding, performing the ceremony for a wedding where the groom actually sang his vows in Spanish. Oh, ladies. I was going, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I don't know what you're saying, man, but it was gorgeous, you know. She was crying too. It was awesome. But there's vows that we make. And so over the next few weeks, I want to talk about some different vows. Next week, I want to talk about the vow of pursuit. Things that we can share. We can make vows to pursue our spouse. The vow of partnership is the week after that. We're going to get to the vow of purity as well. And today, I want to talk about the vow of priority. These aren't new things. In fact, Jimmy Evans, he's a preacher. He talked about vows, Marriage on the Rock. Other preachers and pastors have spoken on different vows before. And I'm just kind of compiling some of these things to talk about them because I feel that this is such an important aspect to our marriage relationships. And so today I want to talk about this idea of the vow of priority. We have an idea of priority. We talk about the idea of, you know, having that one. You know, Disney makes this a real big point of their movies, their princess movies. Either the princess is being pursued to find the one, someday my prince will come, or they are, you know, turn out to start as fish, and then they pursue their man and get legs, and you know, things like that. There's different ways and styles in terms of how they find their one, but it's always about that one. The one, you know, there's that, like I said before, the dream of that perfect guy, that one guy, the only one, my soulmate, that one person, that one girl, she is perfect, she's the one. That guy that's just, he's everything, he is the one for me, the one, the number one. We talk about this in relationships, they should be your number one. I want to just change things up a little bit today when we're talking about priority. When it comes to Scripture, there's actually a different way that we need to prioritize things. And if you're writing things down, this would be a great point to write down. God needs to be your one, and your spouse needs to be your two. I want to encourage you to change your language, even now, for those of you that are single, looking for that special someone, you say, I'm looking for my number two. God is my number one. Scripture is clear, right? I mean, when Jesus is asked, what's the greatest commandment? He says to love the Lord your God with all your mind, soul, heart, and strength, right? Love God, number one. And then love your neighbor as yourself, number two. Isn't your spouse the closest number two that you're going to get? Yeah. Love your number two. Love your neighbor as yourself. So we love God first, priority number one. And we love our spouse, secondly. To really have a marriage that honors God, we put God first in our relationship, and then our spouse is number two. Now, for those of you that aren't married yet today, or you're engaged or thinking about marriage or you're in this place. Some of you high schoolers out there, you're like, I am so far from marriage. That's cool. Think about this, all right? Because I want you to begin to even have a vow for yourself. And this is what I'd like you to say today. I will seek the one while preparing for my two. You see, because if we're not preparing, if we're not in a place of making God priority from the beginning, if we don't have that as our habit from the beginning, it's going to be very easy to slide into this place to where we put God second, third, fourth. It's going to be very easy. But if we keep God first, even now, before you get married, before you're in this place, if you've been divorced and you're in this place of kind of this in-between place, you're in a relationship, I want to encourage you still to put God as your number one and this other person as your number two. This has to be a priority in your life. Because as you put God first, it is going to prepare you. He is going to prepare you for your number two. There was a party girl. There was a girl that went into college, and when she got there, she got into a sorority. She was just living a crazy life, doing drugs. She was drinking all the time. She was just living this lifestyle of whatever goes. And eventually, though, in her sorority, there was a party, and she met this guy, this amazing guy who loved the Lord, who was just this godly guy, godly leader. He was just amazing stud. He was just a rock star of a dude. And she fell in love with him. And so she calls her mom, and she goes, Mom, you're never going to believe it, but I found the one for me, and he's such a godly guy, and he's such an amazing Christian man. And I'm so excited because he is the one that I'm going to marry someday. And the mom, in full grace and loving her daughter, said, but sweetie, even though you may be looking for him, are you actually the kind of girl that he's looking for? Single people, let me just encourage you today that you need to be the kind of person, if you need to become the person you're looking for, is looking for. It's a quote from Andy Stanley. He's a pastor of another church. You need to become the person you are looking for is looking for. What does this mean? If you're looking for the kind of person that is putting God first, you need to be putting God first. If you're looking for that person that will love you for who you are, you need to make sure that in all the people that you know, you are loving them for who they are. The kind of person that you want is the kind of person you need to be. I'm not saying you need to perform. Please don't mistake that. I'm not asking you to put on a mask. I'm saying begin to make the priorities right as they should be, with God first and your spouse second. So the vow that I want us to say today together is, I promise God will be my first priority and my spouse will be my second. Can we all say that together? Here we go. I promise God will be my first priority and my spouse will be my second. Awesome. You said it. You can't go back on it now. Busted. No, let me just tell you that this is something that's so important. You see, God actually established this from the very beginning. Even when he created Adam and he and Adam had this relationship first, right? They walked together in the cool of the day. They spent time together. They enjoyed each other's company. God and Adam had this relationship, but God realized that man should not be alone. So he put Adam to sleep, took a rib out of him. This is what it talks about in Genesis. Created this woman. He wakes up. Adam says, "Whoa, man." And thus the name of, ladies, I know it's bad. Just trying to keep you awake, okay? Just trying to keep you awake. But here's the thing. God recognizes that man needs a number two. God recognizes that women need a number two. But he also wants to make sure that you keep him number one. Genesis 2:24 says, that's why a man leaves his father and mother, is to be united with his wife, and they become one flesh. The word leaves in this scripture here actually means to loosen or relinquish, to let go. The word is azab. And so what this is all talking about is that there comes a point of priority where all these things as we line them up, there's a priority that takes place. When you are a kid, your priority is mom and dad. But when you get married, you need to leave the mom and dad behind, and you come to a place to where you are placing your spouse as your number 2 and God as your number 1. If you place your spouse as your number 1, you're asking them to do something that they can't fulfill. Jill and I have struggled with this. We've talked about this a number of times, and she attests to this, that many times in our relationship, when we're tired and hungry and all of that stuff, we default to this place where we try to have the other one fulfill all of the needs that we might have. But that's not going to happen because God is the one that fulfills everything, not our spouse. Let's be real, our spouses are going to fall short from time to time. They're going to fall short. But when we place them in this idolized state, things can get kind of crazy. Because it's interesting, we'll first idolize these character traits of theirs, but eventually those things that we idolize, we begin to demonize. If we continue to place them number 1 and God as our number 2. We look at that guy and you go, oh my goodness, he's so laid back. He's so easygoing. But then as the relationship goes on, you're like, does he ever get off the couch? Why don't you do something? Stop watching football all day. Or it's, man, she is so put together. She is so driven. She is detailed. She is task-oriented. She is an amazing woman. I love that about her. But then, as time goes on, man, would you stop telling me what to do? Do you see how this goes? The very things that you find attractive in the other person, when idolized, eventually will become demonized later on. When we continue to put them as the number 1 and leave God maybe out of the picture entirely or put him in a secondary place. The problem is you're asking your spouse to meet a need that they were not designed to meet because God is designed to meet your number 1 need of priority and not your spouse. This is crazy because this idea of priority, it changes, right? When you get married and you're dating, the priority is each other. You're looking at each other. You're gazing in each other's eyes, and this is so nice, and marriage is so good. And you get married and newlyweds, and it's all fine and dandy, and then the kids come along, and then kids start to become the priority, and you start to do a lot of this stuff with the kids, and work gets in there, and you're starting to do all of this stuff with work and your image and identity, and you're placing all of these things start to pile up, and pretty soon, God is the farthest thing from you, but then, getting kind of morbid here, you're on your deathbed. What are the things that you talk about the most? Is it, man, I wish I had better granite countertops. I should have had 1,000 likes on my Facebook page. Man, why didn't I ever get that boat? Is that what we talk about on our deathbed? The people that you've experienced, a loved one who is dying? No, what is it that matters most? Loved ones. Man, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. I wish I would have spent more time with my spouse. I wish we would have been together more. Right? The priority changes when we realize there's not much time left. I'd like to encourage you in this point to begin to restructure your priorities so that you can begin to see the things and do the things that actually are the most important, so that when you are on your deathbed, you can go, I'm full. I'm full. It's so good. It's so good. I want to tell you, though, that there's this thing with all of this stuff. And we talk about God putting him in a secondary place. He gets jealous. He gets jealous. And this is something that I had to wrestle with because I've grown up with this hearing that God is a jealous God. I mean, that's one of his names, right? But then I've also heard that jealousy is not okay. That jealousy is a sin, that we shouldn't be jealous, right? That we shouldn't covet, right? And so I'm going, how do I wrestle with this? How do I come to terms with this. And there is a legitimate kind of jealousy that God has that we sometimes will have in our lives. I think about a time when Jack was first born. And Jill had gone through some complications in having Jack. She had an epidural, but the epidural pierced her spinal column and fluid got in there, and it was just headaches, nasty. She had to stay on her back. So she's taking care of Jack for the first 2 weeks on her back, and her mom is in town and all this stuff. And before Jack was born, I had planned a trip to go check off one of my bucket list things, to go canyoneering over in the Escalante wash basin, okay? 4 weeks after Jack was born. And so you're thinking, okay, well, Mark, you cancel that, obviously, because Jill needs you. I mean, there's 2 other kids, young kids. I mean, Kale's 4 and Kate's 2, and she's on her back, and her mom is just leaving and all this stuff. Nope, I went. I know. Boo, bad pastor. Totally. It was an amazing trip, but so dumb. So tough. So here it is. She's wrestling with this, and she's, you kind of get to this place of going, why am I so frustrated? Not only because I wasn't there to help take care of the kids, okay? But what is it that's so frustrating about this? What is it that gets to be a frustration when your spouse is spending more time with their friends than with you? What is this feeling that comes up when your spouse is spending more time at work than with you? What is this feeling that boils up when your spouse is spending more time with your kids than with you? This is a tangible, okay kind of jealousy that God has when we don't put Him first. So you're feeling the same kind of thing that God feels when you are not being put first in your spouse's life, or second if God's number one. I even know of people who get jealous of their spouse's phone. Yeah, it's doing this. In bed. Yeah, I've done it a few times myself, so I'm not total innocent of this. But this is the deal. We need to put God first. He is a jealous God, and there is this legitimate jealousy that God has when we don't put Him first. And I feel that even in our lives with our spouses can feel this kind of jealousy. You should place your spouse before your kids, before your friends, before work, and before your phone. This can destroy marriages if we don't rethink our priorities. And don't get me wrong, good things can break apart marriages. Even the things of best intentions can break apart marriages if they're placed in the wrong place. But if they are in the right place in their priorities, they can be amazing. The main point, the only point, the thing that I want you to remember today is protect your priorities. Men, women, protect your priorities. Make sure you know what those are and stick to them, all right? God first, then your spouse. I would even say make sure, guys, if you have families, if you have kids, make sure that your spouse is before your kids. Too often I have seen where couples will put their kids first, make them the priority, and after they have raised them and the kids are gone, the couple is looking at each other going, who are you? I don't even know who you are. Where's the guy or the girl that I met when we first got married? Because the priorities have gotten so skewed over time, you have forgotten who each other are because your priorities were in your kids before your spouse. Children are important. Children are important, but they are not as important as your marriage. I want to encourage you, if you want to love your kids, invest in your marriage. Invest in it. Pour into it. Show your kids that mommy is the most important. Make it to where you're saying hi to your kids, you're hugging your kids, but you're going, nope, mom gets the first kiss. Mom gets the first kiss. Whatever it is, you're backing up. If the kids say something not so nice to their mom, dads, you get up to those kids and you say, you don't talk to my wife that way. She is my number 2. God is my number 1. It's important. Understand this, because this is an interesting thing that we oftentimes think that we need to make our kids the priority. But hear this. When you made those vows to your spouse, that was till death do you part, right? All of those things, till death do you part. Your kids are a temporary assignment. Eventually, those kids will leave the house. Hopefully, your spouse will not. All right? Now, if you have a millennial, they might stay around a little bit longer, but yeah, I had to get that in there. But I'll tell you this. If you want your children to succeed in their marriages, you need to make sure that you are modeling it. Be successful in your marriage. Put your spouse as your number 1. Model it. Show it. Let your kids see it. Let your kids see you. Have that time that you are having date nights. Let your kids see, no, I'll snuggle you, but I'm snuggling mommy first. You know? Let your kids see that couch time. This is such a priority. Make sure your kids know that you have date nights. Make sure that your kids know that you love one another. You know, if you're more have public displays of affection with your kids. Even if they go, ew, gross, Dad, why did you spank mom's butt? I don't do it, but no. Here's the thing. If your kids see that you are loving your spouse, how do you think they're going to respond when they get married? Your kids will mirror what you do. It's crazy, they do it. It's you're teaching them, even when you don't say it, you're not going all the time, hey, watch what I'm doing here, guys. Do you see that I'm loving your mother? Watch this, do as I do when you get married. No, you just exist. You do it. You make this. You train this into who you are. Even if you did not see this growing up, please understand that you can begin to do these things in your own life. That you can walk this through. That you can change the pattern and reinforce and model a positive kind of relationship. Guys, I want to talk to you for a second because I know that Jill will share things from the ladies' perspective, but I want to just hit the guys for just a second. So, ladies, don't tune out, but guys, listen. I know that it is a natural instinct to protect, right? If you have somebody breaking into your home, chances are really good that you are going to, it doesn't matter. You could be in your tighty-whities and you are going to bring out that bat, that shotgun, whatever, ninja throwing stars, nunchucks. You're going to do whatever it takes to protect your family. You are going to do it until death gets you. It doesn't matter. You are going to protect your family, right? Because you don't want anything to happen to those that you love. I want to encourage you today to protect these priorities like your life depended on it. Because what you are doing by protecting these priorities is that you are protecting your spouse. You are protecting your kids for their future. A lot of times we talk about, I would die for my family. And that's noble. But I want to encourage you to live for your family. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Husbands, love your wives. Love your wives. Love your wives. Love your wives. Like Christ loved the church. What did Jesus do? Jesus loved us so much that he died on a cross so that we could live. He put himself up there so that we could have a chance at life. He modeled how to love, how to live before he went to that cross. And I want to encourage you, men, model how to love, how to live sacrificially. Sacrificially. Model it. Pray together. Go to church together. Get involved in community together. Spend time in the Word together. Talk to each other. Have date nights. Get away together. And some of you might be in a place where you're going, I would love to do this, Mark, but I just can't afford to. It's just too expensive to get away to do this stuff. Can I just encourage you to, if you have other people in your life that have kids the same age, maybe you trade off watching kids for each other for free so that the other one can go out just on a walk. Or maybe even you put the kids to bed at like 8 so that you can have date night from 8 to 10 or 11 or 12. You get what I'm saying? Have fun together. Get creative. But spend that time. Make it a priority. You know, it's easy to make excuses. It's easy. It's easy to put everything else out there, but I want to encourage you to begin to break the excuses, because I just want to tell you that if you're lazy, you'll make an excuse. But if you're purposeful about this, hear this. Love makes a way. Love makes a way. My kids will tell me all the time, Dad, I'm so bored. I'm so bored. I don't want to do anything. I can't do anything. What I've read is that the most creative people start with boredom. Because they are so bored, they try to find something to do. And if they can't afford to do something, they'll try to do something for free. They invent. From boredom comes amazing ideas. So even if you can't afford to, if you are so in love, I want to encourage you to get creative, to find those cheap and inexpensive ways to get away, to make sure that you are protecting those priorities. So you're saying today that you promise to put God first and your spouse second. I want to encourage you today, as the worship team comes up, to continue to make this vow important in your life. Don't forget it. It's too important. Single people today, practice this now so that when you get to the place of being married, this becomes second nature. If you're in a place today where it's a struggle, I want to encourage you, continue to press in, talk with your spouse, and start working on reconfiguring your priorities. The most beautiful thing is to hear, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As these guys are finishing getting set up, I want you just to think about one thing. If you can imagine a triangle, and God is at the top, and you and your spouse are on either side. If you are staying focused on God, and you're growing in that relationship with God, what happens to the two of you? Beautifully, you come together. Beautifully, you get closer to one another. But the minute, if one is focused on God and the other one's focused on the spouse, don't leave me. things change. Seriously, the closer you get to each other is when you get closer to the Lord. Pursue God. Make him your number one and your spouse number two. Will you stand with me? Lord, thank you for this morning. Thank you for this opportunity that we have to talk about this amazing thing of marriage. Jesus, you performed your first miracle at a wedding. You are establishing things from the beginning with relationship. You are referred to as the groom, and we are the bride. Marriage is important. And you modeled for us so well and so beautifully, Jesus, to continue to place God first. You did that without a shadow of a doubt. Through the entire Gospels, as we read, you placed God first. You were obedient to what the Lord said. You were obedient to what God instructed and did and led and shown, and you were obedient even to the point of death. But you were obedient to the Lord, and you demonstrated a tremendous, unconditional love for your bride. Help us to do that today. Help us to work on this. Speak to our hearts, Lord. If we are in a place right now where our relationships with our spouse are struggling, God, would you begin to do a mending work? We talked about you, Lord, as the healer. Lord, would you begin to heal relationships? And I pray, Lord, that as that healing is taking place, would you humble us? Humble us in a way to allow us to see our role in how things have gotten to where they are. Help us to grow in our relationships with each other. Help us to love you first and our spouse second. Be with us today. We love you, God.